Have you ever stopped to think that losing might have been the best thing that could have ever happened to you? I know for me, over the last few years, it's been nothing but a bunch of losses. And to be able to utilize that time to take a step back, to reflect, to understand that losing isn't the worst thing in the world. You could literally crash, fall, and burn. I literally crashed, fell, and burned several times. Physically, emotionally, mentally, literally, everythingly. I did it all. When it comes to physical, the first time was in 2019. I flew off a bike. I was going from one job to the next when I was in college, and I was rushing to get to work because I was running over from my last meeting, and my entrance to the second job, I was working at a venue or an arena rather, and it's this big old hill. It rained the night before. I didn't take that into consideration, so when I went on my usual turn, it was loose gravel there, and I slipped and fell. And not only did I fall, if you could see this little scar on my nose, that's from 6 years ago now, when I flew off that bike. And I remember being so upset that first time, because I'm gonna jump around just a little bit, but I was upset because I knew that I had graduation coming up in about 6 months. I knew that I had pictures on the way. I knew I had travel plans, and I was like, I felt like SpongeBob, like I'm ugly. I don't know how to be proud. And then people were seeking to help me during that time, and I was just like, back off me, I don't want to deal with this. Like, somebody had pulled off to the side of the road, like, oh my God, are you okay? And I'm just like, back off of me, my nose ring is gone. Like, I think about all of the materialistic things that crossed my mind before I even considered my health. And I think this is my reaction when it comes to falling. It's my outer, I'm thinking about this out loud, my outer experience of how am I gonna look, and more so for myself, like, how could I be so foolish, how could I be so stupid to not consider that? And rather than I'm okay, I've been able to, I'm not even gonna go there, I'm able to at least get up, collect myself. I didn't want to be seen as someone who fell, and I was on a high horse during that time. Like, I felt like I was able to prove a lot of my haters wrong, and just felt like I was able to make something of myself. And even working at an arena doing concerts, my teacher sophomore year told me that it's such an impacted field that I would never be able to be in a field like that. And she told me that in a class of 20 people, and I was the only Black person in the room. Neither here or there, but it was a concert class. Like, you do concerts, and she was pushing me to do hotels. And I remember when I was able to work Beyonce, Jay-Z on the Run tour, and it was only for a day, it was in San Diego, but I went to her, I said, I want to remind you that one day you really motivated me to ensure that I could come back and speak to you and let you know that I can't make class because I'm working this concert. So foolish of me. And I was working at a concert venue when I slipped and fell on my behind. And on top of that, there was a coworker who didn't like me and was so happy to see me fall, to the point where she scoured through all the security cameras to find the moment when I fell. And was like, I just had to see how you fell. I can't believe that, that happened to you, and you're lucky that you could even get workers' comp. I don't quite remember if she said that, but anyways, she was the type of person who would tell me that we work in a very fast-paced environment, and if anything comes up that we need to address it immediately. Mind you, she worked right behind me, like in the office behind me. So I was the front office administrator and she was the VP. And we had an entire shift and the whole concert went by. And she had the nerve to send an email to me the following day with the director and my boss. So the director of the entire arena and the boss CC to this email saying, "How dare you wear a hoodie in the office? Why would you bring your own heater? Why are you being rude to customers on the phone? Why aren't you greeting people when people are coming through?" This whole list of things that I did wrong. And I responded to that email. I said I would happily speak with you, with the director and my boss in person, because I'm not going to address you over email. And I asked her, I said, did you get a complaint from a customer that I was being rude over the phone? Well, no. I was like, because from my understanding, when I receive feedback from these individuals, they're very happy with the assistance that I've been able to provide them. Are there customers that typically come into the office? No, it's usually the staff and tour guide. So you're aware that in order for us to have heat in this office, we would have to turn on the heat in the entire arena. Why would I do that? If you want to, I was very on my pro-blackness at that time, but I was like, do you want to be mad at me for wearing a hoodie? Because this sounds awfully familiar. I would never want to pull a race card. Anyways, I don't even know how I got here, but this is a rant that I feel like is worth going on to, because there is a very strong magnetic pull, push and pull that happens when, one, you're seeking to do your own thing because of what you aspire to be, and that fine line of seeking to prove someone. And whether I was in the right or wrong, whether she was in the right or wrong, I still had to live with the fact that I failed and she's digging up all this information. I say all this to say that from that point, and fast forward 3 years later, even when I was running away from my own problems in America, when I was in Bali 2 days into my 5-week trip, I flew off a motorcycle, and my best friend was sitting right behind me. She was on that motorcycle with me, and we flew over Divider, and I pierced my stomach so hard to the point of when I bounced back up, first of all, I saw her fly over my head because I was panicking. I didn't see her. So when I fell onto the ground, I crashed. The first thought is, where is my best friend? And I'm looking around, and as I'm looking around, I'm seeing her fly over my head. I was like, oh my goodness, this is not good. And I'm thinking, like, it's like a bicycle crash like I had a few years ago. So I just bounced back up. I was like, we're gonna be fine. I dusted myself off, and she was like, girl, look down. And it's like blood shooting out of my stomach. And there's people around, and I'm like, but everybody's looking, like, we gotta go back to our Airbnb. She's like, no, we can't do that. We gotta go to the hospital. Nearest hospital is 40 minutes away, mind you, but thankfully a local knew all the streets on how to get there. He said, as long as you leave the window open, they're gonna see our faces, because she lost a lock. My face was bloody. Her face was bloody. Like, her whole skin is gone from our arms. Like, it was bad. And even then, I had to sit back and realize I had been running from something. And as I am speaking aloud to even correlate what happened in the first bike crash in 2019 to the second motorbike crash in 2022, it's always, I'm here to prove someone wrong. I'm here to make a stance on who I am and prove to the world that I am this being that's untouchable, and that's not true. And so, again, when it comes to really just being aware of your falls and how to make them stronger in a way where when you return, it's not going to be about proving yourself. It's about improving yourself. So that's the biggest difference in learning how to withstand the rain and understand how to really expand your capacity to have empathy for others who are imposing intentional or unintentional harm onto you. Not let that be your fuel, and let the only fuel pushing you be that you are fulfilling your purpose through God and the divinity of the strengths that were gifted to you, and moving away from any earthly realm that you think is going to give you satisfaction. And that goes, again, mental, physical, emotional, literal, metaphysical, iteral, all the O's. It's imperative to remember why you're here and be kind to everyone in the process. And when you fall, first of all, know that you're not the only one to fall, and you're human for being able to fall, and to be able to own up to that and say that I'm gonna be better for me is far more valuable than, well, I need to cover myself to be someone that I am not. Because the moment you do that, you seek to find validation, and that begins to show, and that becomes your aura that you release. And everyone has to go through some degree of that. And the only way for you to rise above it all is if you come crashing to the ground. And I had to learn to be okay with that. And even in my journey as a businesswoman and as a creative, and holding and wearing these different hats, it took and is taking many years to not feel like I have to put on a show for someone else and be fully authentically myself. And I will do a separate video on how this plays in a huge role in my perspective on selling, because selling is you putting yourself on the front line, and what people think is you're putting yourself on the front line to prove that you have something for somebody else, when the reality is that you are presenting value for someone else to then take for themselves to grow as a result of what you've come and grown out of through your experience. It's such a fine line between proving yourself and shining a light on the value that you can bring to people. And so I am thinking through the process of what I've gone through as I speak in this video to really emphasize and hopefully deliver some form of meaning to those that are watching this, to know that it's okay to fall. It's okay, and it's extremely important to take a moment to reflect on your falls. Again, whether that's physical, mental, emotional, literal, we have to evaluate what that looks like in order for us to grow. And that's part of going back to my realizations of the book of Genesis, is the subdue. When you set your mind to go do something, to be fruitful, to multiply, the only way you're going to be able to do it is if you clear space for the new, and that's what falling is. Falling and clearing it out, at least, but you have to clear it out. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope you were able to get some form of perspective and introspection when it comes to my story and how that could perhaps apply to your story, relate to your story. I hope you feel a little less alone in knowing that, you know, these late night moments and reflections can come into a very fruitful experience for you, but you just have to keep going. So keep going. Thank you so much for making it to this point. If you like this video, like, share, subscribe, and I